Good evening. Welcome to the Danvers Conservation Commission meeting for 11/19/2020. We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After the applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we will accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address first. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all of the meeting attendees. This includes the members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, and property owners and project applicants. Moving on, I'm going to take a roll call of the members, and then we'll proceed from there. Vanessa Curran.
Here.
Michael Splain.
He's muted.
Mike, you're muted.
Good. Here.
Ann McGill.
Here.
Chelsea King.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Georgia Pendergast.
I am here, and Alicia Linehan is here with me as well. Her microphone is not working, and
Okay.
Fields will not be in attendance today.
So, who will field emails if there are any?
I will. I get them as well.
Okay. All right. Since this is a little different, there are no conventional agenda items, so there will be no speakers speaking on behalf of applicants. So good evening. The open meeting of the Danvers Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Remotely via the WebEx app, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided by members of, supporting materials that have been provided members of this body and will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comments, we have established an email address for public comment, which is publiccomments@danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of the meeting. Residents may email comments and they will be provided/read out loud after staff has confirmed the name and address. Commission in the subject line. We have also established a phone line for public comment. you may call on 978-777-0001, extension 2, to provide comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. This is a special meeting. We only have one item on the agenda, and that is to review, discuss, and most likely vote on dependent regulations. So the first item is continue to public hearing the Town of Danvers Wetlands Bylaw Regulations. Proposed changes to the wetland regulations associated with the Chapter 26, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. And just one quick additional caveat, whatever we vote on tonight is still subject to the Attorney General approving the changes that were made to the Wetlands Bylaw at the October 26th town meeting. That being said, I'm going to turn this over to Georgia. She's going to give us a quick overview of what the regulations entail. I'm hoping that everyone has had a chance to read over what Georgia had sent out, and then we'll open it to the board members and then the public for any comments or questions. Okay, Georgia, just a quick overview if you could.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Peter. So I'm actually going to share my screen. So this is the master regulation document that everyone had received in the packet 2 weeks ago for our last meeting, and it's since been updated since we last spoke. Giving an overview, just looking at the new sections we have. Again, I know we've heard this many of times, but we're now, per the bylaw, we're now regulating vernal pools, isolated vegetated wetlands, and we've now adopted a 35 no disturb and a 50-foot no build. We've also now adopted more regulations for coastal docks and piers, or this is what we've implemented in the proposed regulations. In that we also have more waiver requirements, alternative analysis, and application requirements. We've also introduced minor project permits for the smaller permits that don't necessarily qualify as an RDA, that are better spent with time and staff administrative approvals. And I've also updated some of the forms, as you saw in the waiver request form. So going through, I just wanted to highlight what the commission discussed at the last meeting. So all of these sections we've been reviewing, we've reviewed at subsequent meetings the past, I think, 4 meetings. So in our last discussion, we had talked about coastal docks and piers. I'm going to go to that section right now. So we had, the commission had voted on implementing a 24 inches. So that has now been added to the bylaw, the regulations. I do want to note the version that was sent out on Friday or Monday following discussion said 22 inches. That was my mistake. It should read 24, which it does now. So Anne had suggested changing that to what the commission voted on. So I've put that in. And other changes that we had not discussed since the last meeting, Anne had also provided some general grammar or technical comments, which were great. So right here, where it says 5 feet, it had shown the number 5. For example, and here it said 4 feet, it had shown the number 4, and here it said 6. Or it was a variation of numbers written out. It didn't match, so I've changed that all to be written out to correlate better. That was one of the other changes. And then I had also updated, you guys had seen in the packet, the fee schedule, where there was a change to, let me just open that. Sorry, guys. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the filing fee schedule. So this, after the fact filing, we had put at $500 flat. And we realized the impact of that didn't really equate to, if anything, it was the same cost as it would be if you were to file an NOI. So there really was no kind of penalty for filing after the fact if you were to do anything category 2 and above. It would really equate or be less than the penalty. So I've changed that to 2 times the filing fee. with a minimum of $600. So, for example, if you were to build an addition on your home and not file an order of condition, not file an NOI, and we find out after the fact, aka an enforcement, we can enforce them to file a notice of intent after the fact. So in this case, if they had followed the rules, it would be 100, but because it's after the fact, it would now be 600. And if it was a category 2, it would be 1,000, and then 1,600. So 2 times the filing fee. So those were the changes, the most recent changes from what the commission last discussed. And I didn't have a presentation, really. I think I've really speaking it to death with the major changes. So I'll leave it to the commission if they had any questions or points. I know I'd heard from some people, so I'll pass it back off to you, Peter.
Okay, I just have one quick question. I mean, we mentioned the 24-inch correction already. On the, I guess they were the guidelines for the filing, you know, where the applicant had to have public engineers certify things. And I think we had mentioned somewhere that, you know, sometimes a homeowner comes in on their own and they, you know, it's just like a minor thing that they're coming in front of us for. Are we going to provide some exception where they don't need to go through the expense of having to hire a public engineer?
Yes, so there is a provision in here that the commission has the right to waive the requirements as they see fit based on project to project. Obviously, you can't waive the minimum state requirements. But for example, in RDA, those certain projects don't require a certified plan. So even though our project requirements kind of say you need to give us a stamped engineered plan, there are provisions where the commission can waive that requirement.
Okay, good. As you probably know, I'm not a big reader, but I did bear down and I did read through all 32 pages of this. So other than that, I think it's pretty thorough, and I like what I see. So I'm going to pass that along to the members, and we'll see what people have for comments. So I think we'll start with you, Mike. You said you had some questions.
Thank you. Could we go to section 1 and put it up there, 1.2?
Yes.
I want to see if that's okay. You know, I mean, I can be a stickler for words, but I'm reading the purpose, and it says the purpose of these regulations is to define and clarify that process by establishing standard. And I'm saying, well, what is that process? Do we mean that process whereby we regulate the wetlands? In other words, it doesn't tell me anything. It just says that process, and it doesn't. If you read before it, you don't get that sense either. So I'm just wondering if that needs to be.
That's a great point, Mike. Let me, if you want to go into your next one, let me double check, because I think the original bylaw, it seems like there may be a sentence missing before this.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
That's a great catch. So let me double check that right now of what the previous bylaw had said. Oops,
All right, should I continue on or let someone
yes,
else?
if you would like.
All right. When we talked about modifications, and that's on page 4, on the definitions.
Yep.
So, are we still in that posture where it's minor or major? How is that working now? Because I get the sense if it's minor, you're going to handle it. Is that correct?
So there's a difference here. So a minor project would be, if it qualifies as a minor project, that means they don't need to file and go in front of the commission, and that would be approved by staff. If you have an existing order of conditions that needs to have a modification, it's either minor or major. So in major, you need to come before the commission. This definition is saying the modification is going to be a minor or insignificant change to an existing order.
Okay. Does it also mention a major, or that's just something we interpret?
That I would leave to interpretation, but if we go down, sorry to make everyone dizzy with going to my pages.
No, that's good.
So if we go down to permits regulating work, so we have minor modification.
Yes.
So that's this modification. I could put minor in front of the word on definition. I think that would help clarify.
Okay.
And then, so we have a minor modification, and then we have an amendment. So it's not, sorry, I misspoke. We don't have minor and major. We just have a minor modification that's staff approved. If it does not need to go in front of the commission, if it does, then you would amend, it would be a permanent amendment.
Okay, thank you.
So would it be helpful if I had put minor in front of that definition of modification?
I think so.
Okay, that's agreed.
On page 5,
Yep.
it's just grammatical. Maybe you fix it because I'm looking at my old. But
Okay.
the volume of detention / retention basin,
Yep.
and it said hall. I think it should be shall.
Yes, I did fix that. Good
Oh,
catch.
good. You're good. Well, at the top where it talked about species, the all vertebrate, invertebrate, animal and plant species. I was just wondering, is there an actual list that's promulgated by the Division of Wildlife?
Yeah, so there is a list. They have the National Habitat Endangered Species list that I think they do occasionally update and change. What page were you referencing, Mike? Because
Referencing page 5, rare species.
Right there, George, you want right back.
there we go. Yeah, so they do have an official list. I could put in the definition as listed on the list, but
Oh, no, I don't care if you do, but I just saw that it said listed as
Yes.
endangered. I was wondering where that list came from, really.
yeah, so that would be coming from DMF, or sorry, Division of Wildlife and Fisheries.
Okay. I'm just flipping through.
Yeah.
I like the language on 7, the presumption of significance. I thought that was good. On 3.1.5.
Yes. Good. Yeah, I think this will be helpful in what applicants
Yes.
have to provide.
The part on 3.2.2, it's page 8. And that's all. That's talking about the pond, but I think it's also in the so-called intermittent streams. How do they provide the evidence? I know at the hearings that sometimes the applicant could come in with a picture and say, "See, we were out there in July or August and it was dry." Is it still going to be that way, or is it going to be a more definitive?
For vernal pools specifically, or for any resource area?
Well, anybody. I mean, this talks about vernal pools, and this says the evidence that the ponding area does not hold water for at least 2 continuous months.
Yep.
When not in a period. I liked it. When not in a period of extended drought. Actually, I think that's good. What do we have for intermittent streams for evidence?
That they use technical data. We use stream stats. I mean, if anything, applicants are more likely to want to prove it's intermittent rather than riverfront. So they're going to be providing very technical information. So they provide, it's a lot of watershed data, stream stat data that it's more scientific than interpretation.
So we don't have a test for it ourselves.
No, and that's, I would say so much so that we don't even need to put it in the regulations because it's so required by the state. Say, similar to how, a wetland, you need to provide a delineated plan, that's the 101 of permitting.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
I'm
I'm sorry, go ahead, Judge.
I was just going to say, for the consultants, for the bill manuals, the way they interpret and review banks, it's very technically laid out how an intermittent stream needs to be classified in the state regulations. So that's why we haven't added our own provisions there.
Yeah. Well, we had a project up the street from myself and Peter, really, in a sense that at, 308 Locust up, that property. And there was some disagreement, well, at least with me, on whether it was intermittent or not. And really, the evidence they were using, well, among other things, was a picture that it had dried up at points. And it makes all the difference, 100 versus 200, right? I mean, in terms of the amount of development they can do. So we don't have a standard. So we would, if an applicant comes in and says the stream's intermittent, would we just look on our history and say, oh, it's been intermittent in the past? And
well, what I would say is, if anything, if the commission ever felt that what the applicant was saying, that they believe differently, I think, especially in a technical instance like this, where the applicant's kind of pushing back on a scientific basis, that's a perfect opportunity for the commission to implement hiring outside consultants for that review. I think that's a great example of where you can kind of push back and say, okay, well, we're going to get our experts to review what you've provided. Not that the commission aren't experts, but the regulations can only provide so much. So that's where the commission could push that a little bit further.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had done that in that case, but I don't think we had really implemented at that point. But that brings me to my next point. Where is it in here about our authority to get peer review? Is that in the? Did I miss that?
No, you did not. So if you give me a second, I think we have that under. Sorry. So we do have that in there. You know what, Mike? It may actually be in the bylaw.
Okay. Maybe we did vote on it and make it.
Yeah, because I had noted that on top of the application fees, that the commission holds the right to require the consultant to provide fees to pay for outside consultant services. So I do know that that's in there. I just need a second to find the actual.
Yeah. Well, as long as we know it's there and we can point to it.
I don't recall seeing that in this, Georgia, but I do remember going through with Dave and Aaron.
And
we did have the right to request peer review.
Yes.
Can we come back and confirm that, or if it needs to be put in? Maybe is it too late for that?
I know it's in there. I mean, we don't have to add it right now. I think we could even add it at the next meeting if we quickly wanted to do it, but I know it's in the bylaw.
Okay.
And I think it's so explicitly just a simple statement that the commission can require additional fees. There's no regulation that really goes with that. So that's why I think it's in the bylaw. Yeah,
this is, as long as we confirm that one way or the other, Georgia, because that's a key thing that we want to have.
Yeah.
All right. Again, on page 8, under performance standards, the 3.2.3, where it talked about a variance request, Georgia.
Yes.
Are we talking about going a variance before the Board of Appeals or some other kind of a variance?
It's a waiver. Does it say the word variance?
No, it says variance request. I'm talking about 3.2.3, number 1.
Oh, sorry. So that would be a variance from the Wetlands Protection Act with the state.
To the state.
Yeah. So you know how we say you can't alter within 25 feet. You need a waiver for it. the state says you can't alter within a vernal pool at all. You need a waiver from the state to even start that,
Okay. And how
which is
that's,
a very big feat.
they would come before us, then end up going back to the state, or they would go there
If
first?
anything, they would want to go to them first, get their variance, then apply with us and the state.
I'm glad you cleared that up, because I was thinking Board of Appeals. So.
No, sorry, that's what, so the 310 CMR 10.5,
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
yeah.
What else did I have? I'm sorry I'm taking up all the time.
No, this is great. This
Took
is
the
what
time to read it.
this is what this time's meant for.
All right. Now, can you explain the definition between docks and piers and floats? Is the dock mean the whole thing?
Yeah, so that language is interchangeable. I think it's really up for interpretation, but I use the term coastal docks and piers, and I think
Okay,
that
where are you now?
I'm going to go down to, I'm on page 10.
Yeah, that's where I am. What's that? See, when you look at page 4, the definition, if you go back to page 4
Yes.
and take a look at the definition for dock,
Yes.
okay. It says it means the entire structure.
Yes.
So everything from the bank out to where that float is at the end is referred to as the dock then?
Yeah, I think we're just implying a dock system. You know, hey, you're an illegal dock, or the applicant's proposing to build a dock. That would, in that language, we're assuming that could mean a pier, a float, a mixture of any of those.
Says walkway, wharf, bulkhead, float, yeah, piling, yeah, all right. So, and then back on page 10. On number 2, 4.1.2, number 2.
Yes.
So pier decking, what exactly is pier decking in terms of the whole dock? And it has to be 5 feet above mean height. Is that to pass under it?
Yes. So that's going to be, the pier is going to be the fixed structure with the pilings. Yeah, so it's going to be the permanent with the
First part that comes off the bank?
100, yes. That's what needs to be. And so these requirements are what I took from Army Corps of Engineers.
I know when we go kayaking on the Cape, I like to go under the piers because they're high enough. So is that what that's designed to do, to allow you to pass under?
So that's really the whole basis almost around Chapter 91, for people to have rights to fish, fowl, and navigate water as they should past that tide line. So that 5 feet allows the public to get under that way.
Okay.
And Mike, before you jump into the next point, I just wanted to share my screen. Can everyone see section 17 fees? On the screen? Yes, so this is in the bylaw that we adopted. So point 3, exercise of discretion by the commission in making its determination to require the payment of a consultant fee shall be based upon its reasonable finding that additional information, blah, 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 blah. So this is where we have that provision for the commission. So it's not in the regulations, it's in the bylaw.
All right. Good.
All right.
Thank you for finding that. And, the idea of the replication in a wetland,
Yes.
see that, where it gave numbers like 1.5 to 1.
Yeah, so that's a great,
I was trying to grasp that. So if you disturbed 100 square feet the replication required would be 150 square feet? Like
Yes.
that?
So,
And-
yeah, so if it was 2 to 1, if you altered 100, you would have to give us 200.
And is that something that they can ask for a waiver on?
So they could ask for a waiver on that. It would be interesting to see why. So in that they'd be one, requesting to alter the wetland, and then on top they'd be asking to not provide as much as they should back.
Would any replication have to be contiguous with the existing bordering vegetated wetland?
Yes, so I think I have it closer to the bottom.
Yeah, I think I saw that in there.
Yeah, so our replication and our restoration standards have increased since the last bylaw, not by much, but as Mike had noted, yeah, and I apologize, this makes me dizzy. Here we go. So under the state requirements, if you get permission to alter within a wetland, you must provide as much as you alter, a 1-to-1 ratio. In this, we've proposed a 1.5-1 ratio to wetlands that are for replacing wetlands. And I just want to note the difference between replacing and restoring. So replacing is when you completely build a whole new wetland. And restoring is when you take a wetland that may be in disrepair and you improve that by removing, like it says here, removal of invasive species, debris, soils, and replanting to reestablish. So if you're going to be restoring, we're going to make you double. So it's going to be a 2-to-1.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought they seem to be pretty consistent, again, with the standards that we've been observing in other towns. I think it's pretty appropriate for any impending projects we could have that could potentially alter wetlands. As we know, a lot of the development we have right now is infill, and we're running out of a lot of big land, and developments we do have are getting a bit closer to waters and wetland areas. So having this will definitely be helpful. We haven't implemented a lot of restoration and replacement regulations just yet, but it's nice to increase the number.
I think I only have two more things.
All right.
One is, what is it we regulate now between the 100 and the 200?
What do we regulate in between there?
Yeah.
So that would be in between the 100 and 200. That would only be if there's a riverfront area.
Right.
So that would be the outer 200, in between the 100 and 200, the outer riparian. It's not that we're regulating anything differently. It's not saying, hey, in the 100 to 200, you can only do this.
Well, what's the distinct? There's a distinction, though. I know when we were that project on the port where they wanted to add a construction yard. And,
Oh yeah, so Harbor Street. So
yeah.
in that first 100, so if you want to redevelop in the riverfront area, the standards of the riverfront are going to say, all right, if you are going to develop, it needs to be an improvement, and also if you're going to add anything, it needs to be further away from the riverfront as before. And in that case, they said we're at least 100 feet away.
Right.
So there's no new alteration within 100 feet.
But then Kyle came out and said, well, there's nothing going on between the 100 and 200. There's no discharge or something. So I was just remembering that.
He may have just been using the 100 to 2 of the outer riparian as a reference to him and based on scope and impact. You know, he could have just been saying, well, there's nothing, it's not like it's a specific standards between the 0 and the 1. We don't have like a list of what can happen in the 0 to 100, 100 to 200 in these
like we do with the no disturb, no build.
Exactly.
We don't have that.
Yeah, because one, those areas are so broad too. They're a lot bigger in the riverfront area.
And my last thing on page 26.
Yeah.
And I know I probably should know this, but when do we go with a notice of intent versus an abbreviated notice of intent? What would be the criteria?
That's a great question. So it really depends on size of project. So the difference between applying for an abbreviated notice of intent, I think it's if you're altering less than 45 linear feet of bank or less than, I think it's 2,000 square feet of total alteration. I'd have to look at there are specific trigger requirements.
Okay, that was it. I thank you.
Just to go back to Mike's first question on the process, did you find what you were looking for in that, Georgia?
Yes, I did. So if you don't mind if I share my screen. Everyone see my screen? Let me make it a little bigger. So this is our existing regulations as they stand right now. This is the purpose section, the part that Mike had noted. So I took this existing language and put it in the regulations. This is confusing because our existing regulations right now say the purpose of this bylaw. So it should say the purpose of these regulations are to protect the wetlands, water bodies, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So this section did not make it in. All that made it in was the purpose of these regulations
Is
to define that process. So there's that missing section.
Oh,
So
good.
you'll add that in?
So I'm going to actually add that in right now. You guys can watch me as we do that. Thank you, Mike, for all those comments. Those were great.
Thank you for your response.
All right, Mike, good questions.
All right, I'm all done.
Okay, we'll move on to Ann. Do you have any questions, Ann? Comments?
Just on the stormwater management,
Yes.
because on page 12, it gives a list of what is expected. Now, when we had Harbor Street, we had an extensive plan. It seems to me that our current parking lot problem is turning into stormwater management issues. And so this is what I found confusing in terms of we have something very specific for stormwater, and we had a large project that had it, and we have a smaller project where it seems to be rolling into it. Now, does that require us to send that person back to get a permit, or do we just roll with what they're giving us?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Anne. So the conservation, in some towns, we call it a stormwater authority. So similar to the Conservation Commission, if you meet certain triggers that would trigger an NOI, same way it would trigger the need for a stormwater permit. Some towns, the Conservation Commission is the stormwater permitting issuing authority. So they're the ones that do your order of conditions, and they also do your stormwater. In Danvers, we're different. The engineering department is in charge of our stormwater permits. They oversee that. So in that, we have the Danvers Stormwater Management and Land Disturbance Bylaw. That's similar to our Wetlands Bylaw. In that bylaw, it lists all the triggers and requirements for applying for stormwater. So in here, really for us, one, not to kind of recreate the wheel, and two, to kind of direct and put our expertise on the engineers that really would know best. What we had done here was saying, all right, if you are required by the stormwater bylaw to submit a stormwater permit, we want to see a copy of that. Mm-hmm. And I will say the engineering department, on the same night we adopted the wetland regs, they updated the stormwater regulations. Much more modernized, to be much up to code for requirements and inspections. And I will also say to the commission, not dissimilar to what had been done in the past, since we always share things with departments, but the engineering department's now reviewing all of our permits, whether that be certificate of compliance closeouts or even just single family homes. So they are reviewing projects that may not even be triggered by stormwater. They just are doing that in their own just self wanting to review from a stormwater aspect. Did that answer your question, Anne? I wasn't sure if I
Well, yes,
clarified.
because now it seems like the engineering department has a complete idea of what they would want.
Yes.
What it seemed to me is when we got to the parking lot, all of a sudden we went from putting a parking lot into stormwater management. But I can't even be sure that that was stormwater that we're talking about. It could be an underground spring.
Yes.
So that was what I found confusing. But when I'm reading this, it looks like that the stormwater management comes out of engineering. And if we trip over it, do we send it back? Do we send it over to engineering, or do we ask engineering to come and take a look at this? Because that's what, to me, it seems like, okay, we've had several people complaining about stormwater managements in different projects. And that was why I wanted to say, okay, so where do we really stand? What authority do we have in stormwater management?
I think our goal, especially at the town level and just staff-wise, is hopefully by the time the applicant has, especially for, if there is new stormwater, you know, something that requires a stormwater permit, that's of course where engineering is going to provide a review. And we would hope that by the time we get to Conservation Commission, those big stormwater issues have been buttoned up at the planning board level and the engineering level.
Okay.
For example, we have a project right now where there are some stormwater issues, like you said, in the parking lot. Those issues didn't come up in planning board because there was no new proposals for work over there. So I think this one's a little different in that we have been getting stormwater issues, and I think those now with this proposal and this layout with the bylaw change, those projects will now be triggered to go in front of engineering first.
Okay.
And we hope it's rare that, but if we do have an issue, we're more than welcome to send anything to engineering and say, can you look this over again? Can you give this a review? Similar to how we did right now at Elliott Street. You know, we asked them to review the plan again and come out. Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks. That was the only section that I wanted more clarification on. Thank you.
Okay. You all set then, Ann?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Did we lose Chelsea?
No, I'm here.
Okay, I just didn't see your name on the board. Do you have any questions, Chelsea?
No, I'm just absorbing it all. It's a lot to take in.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let me move on to Vanessa then.
I don't have anything additional. I think everything's been pretty well covered.
Okay, so that covers the board members. Okay, so I'll go over to staff, and Georgia, you're doing the emails, right?
Yes, and I don't see any, and I haven't heard the phone ring, but let me yell to Alicia. Alicia, any calls? No calls and no emails.
Okay, let me open it up to public comment then. I see that Matthew Duggan has joined us tonight. So, Matt, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this endeavor. I don't have a complete understanding of the difference between the existing bylaw and the regulations. Are the regulations above and beyond? What can you explain the difference between the two? Because I have a specific question about notice and hearings, and it looks like there's some different language for in each document.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Georgia, can you clarify that for us, please?
Yes. So just in simple terms and kind of the way I look at it, the bylaw is the skeleton and the regulations are the muscle and the veins. So the bylaw is going to list the rules and the regulations are going to list how to apply that. So if it comes down to date and time, if those two are discrepancy, we would, of course, want the bylaw to be the most ruling and the one we refer to first.
Okay, so the bylaw supersedes whatever's in the regulations?
I would say so. I can't say for
Can I
certain,
give
but
you an
would.
example? So in this regulations document in section 6.4 on page 22.
Yep.
Under, that's the notifications.
I'm getting there. Sorry. All right. 6.4.
So it seems kind of, there's in section, I think, it just talks about the newspaper. It doesn't really talk about any other communication avenue. So in the bylaw, it specifically says registered or certified letters to abutters within 300 feet, sort of similar to the ZBA requirement of notification.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, the bylaw itself, I think, which is section 5, that has a lot more weight to it, I think.
It may, in which I would reference them to the bylaw.
Yeah. Okay, all right, that's
Yeah.
fine. It just seemed in this regulation 6.4, it just seemed didn't really have enough meat to it.
I know what you mean. It does seem backward, and I see what you're saying, Matt. And I think if we were to update the bylaw again, I would reverse it. In that we would want to keep the language in the bylaw somewhat simple. If the act or section 9 were to change, that way we could change it easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So just to go back to the difference, so the bylaw, which is section, was it 26 or?
Yes, of the
Section
general
26.
bylaws.
So that is approved by town meeting, and these regulations are only approved by the commission?
Correct. Yep. Similar to planning board, how the planning board has their own rules and regulations.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Concom has the regulations that they adopt at a public hearing at their meeting.
All right. I'm just curious about the difference in approval. Because the regulations could be kind of very stringent, and yet the people that are implementing them really don't, or they're from an appointed board or commission. So, all right. And then just one other thing is the enforcement orders. I'm not really seeing where that's defined. Is that something that is just kind of a staff responsibility, that they take care of enforcement orders on their own, or how does the commission play into that role?
Yeah, so let me try to find it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a page number for that one.
No, that's absolutely fine. So the process isn't laid out stringently. It basically says what the bylaw says. If you didn't apply to alter here, then if you're not doing it legally, then you're doing it illegally. It's a violation. It's an enforcement. It's a violation. But how the commission handles that illegal activity is either a violation or enforcement. And I want to find the language in here. Sorry, Matt. That may be in the bylaw. Do you have a question specifically, or just where it was? Hold on one second.
Well, these documents, they're all well and good, but we know there's bad characters out there that try to not find loopholes, but try to play games with the intent of this commission. So sometimes you really have to lay down the law, and so I'm trying to understand how that happens and who's responsible for that.
So I do know we have the provision to charge $100 a day for. It's bothering me. I can't find it here.
That's all right. I think it's better if you can just explain it this one. I don't need to see I try to search through some of these PDFs and I'm not successful, but.
Yeah, so in the regulations, in section 9, additional regulation provisions, we say the commission can enforce these regulations, orders, permits, or determinations, and issue thereunder any manner consistent with section 14 of the bylaw. And let me go over there, and I can read that to you if we want to look at that together. That said section 14.
Oh, I see. So in section 11 is the enforcement. I think I'm looking at the bylaw on page 5.
The old bylaw or the newly
Yeah,
adopted bylaw?
this is the one that's online.
Oh yeah, so it's the old bylaw. So on the screen I have the newly adopted
Oh, I
bylaw,
see that. Yep. Okay.
and you can see we have all these provisions. Our last line: anyone who violates a provision punished by no more than a fine of $100. So I would say the determinant of that violation could be the Conservation Commission, the Conservation Commission staff referencing it to the board. It could be the DEP recommending that the Conservation Commission issue a violation. We've had that before. So I'll leave this up here for a second, Matt, if you want to read these.
Well, yeah, I'm reading that, and I'm concerned where it says not more than $100. That doesn't really seem like.
I think that number may be
That's each day.
of what we're allowed to require, but it's by each violation for each day.
I see. Okay. So not in totality. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so if they're cutting trees and building an illegal house, that's 2 activities, $200 for every day.
Okay.
And this is what was in the bylaw. So this portion's been adopted.
All right. Well, it's kudos to you, staff, and to this commission to to revisit this. We know that it's a kind of a necessary task to do this on a regular basis as the state laws change, I think, and you learn as you go, right? Sometimes you run across things that were not thought of at the time when you last touched these. All right, thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Georgia.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, is there any other public comment that we're seeing? Okay, let me just ask the board in general, anyone else have any final comments before we move to close the hearing?
I have just one thing, and it's more about moving forward. So it was mentioned that if we vote to adopt these tonight, then you said they have to go to the Attorney General?
Yeah. Do you want me to clarify, Peter, or did you want to?
Well, let me just say my interpretation, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. The bylaw changes that were voted on at the town meeting cannot go into effect until the Attorney General approves. So my interpretation here is that any changes we make tonight kind of ride on that. So once the Attorney General approves the town bylaw changes voted on at the town meeting, then these regulations would follow along with that.
Yeah, and there's no town meeting vote needed to adopt the regulations here in front of us.
Okay. So in terms of our hearings moving forward, what do we expect the time to, like the time frame that we'll hear back from the Attorney General on the bylaw? Can we conduct hearings in accordance with these revised regulations, or do we have to wait until we get the final blessing?
David and I had spoken about that, and I had asked him, and we believe it's safe in our best interest to have it contingent upon the acceptance of the bylaw. We wouldn't want to be, I mean, one, it's hard to, we can't regulate the 35 and the 50 because technically we don't know exists. So there's some portions of the regulations that we can't really apply yet. And I would hate to also have the commission start applying regulations that may eventually, something in the bylaw could be taken away, and we've restricted someone when really these regulations, something could change. So I think it's in our best interest to wait until the Attorney General gives the sign off, and then as voted tonight on that contingency, that we could automatically the next day, they would go into effect. So from now, anyone that submits a permit or an application from now until when we get that approval back it's under the current regulations. And then the minute we get the Attorney General saying you're good to go, then that's when we can start implementing.
Okay, thank you.
And
Do you have any idea on time frame on that, or is it just, I
Yeah.
don't expect it to be quick?
So I've been checking the website. The Attorney General has 90 days. That's the
Okay.
rule. I've been looking, and it seems to be they're sticking to about that 90 days
Okay.
on the day. So we sent that in, I want to say, a couple days ago. So we're going to have it's about 3 months out. I would be conservative on that. But I think getting this ready if we vote now, then it's off the table. We're all good to go. We can just smooth sailing once we get the approval.
Okay, thank you.
we only have one meeting in the next 6 weeks anyways.
Yeah. Do you guys just want to quickly read over this last change I made for the purpose that Mike had pointed out?
Could you make it a little bit bigger, please?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Let me get...
Good,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes. I need to keep it consistent.
So we say the purpose twice. Do you see that, Georgia?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any harm.
No.
I could write further. Do you like that, or any? I could take out further, put it back to what we have.
Well, you could say to further the purpose of these regulations. Well, I don't know. You decide, but we're saying the purpose twice now. Yeah, I guess further's fine.
Okay.
And should definition be definitions? Should it be plural?
I was just gonna say,
And the verb, yeah.
Yes, let's put an S in there. Boom.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me.
I think that's good.
I think it's great. All right. Let me know when I can plug in that number. So Peter, I think that was good on our end.
Okay, so I'm going to first move to close the hearing. So if anyone else has anything else they want to add, now's the time. With that being said, so I'd entertain a motion that we close the public hearing on our regulation review.
I'll move that we close the hearing on the review of the regulations.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, I'm going to poll the members to see if they approve. Vanessa,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
Ann,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, the next I'd like to hear, entertain a motion that we approve these regulations as presented, contingent upon the Attorney General's approval of the town bylaw, which was approved at the town meeting on October 26th.
I'll make a motion that we approve and adopt the regulations as reviewed tonight, subject to approval by the Attorney General.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, let me poll the members to see if we all approve. Vanessa,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
and Peter, yes. Okay, good job, everybody. It's been a long road to get these done, but
We got
and
it.
I'd say, I think we all owe Georgia a
Yeah.
huge amount of gratitude because she's put a lot of work into this, and I think it's all worthwhile. I think it's the first time it's been done in 21 years.
Great job, Roger.
Very good, very good.
And I'll thank
Alicia,
you guys.
Alicia too.
And Alicia and David. I think all of
And
us.
David, is David there? I haven't heard from him.
No, David took a week off to be with his
okay.
family, which I think he's in the best place he could be right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna text him right now, a big smiley face, thumbs up, happy face.
All right.
emoji.
Okay, great.
All right, good.
All right.
So our work is done, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn our meeting of November 19th.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, let me tell the members, see if you approve. Vanessa,
Yes.
Michael,
All right.
Ann,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
and Peter, yes. Okay, we are adjourned. So on that note, I say thank you to all, and everybody enjoy your Thanksgiving. Stay
Thank
safe
you.
and stay healthy.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone and all.
Bye. Happy
Gobble
Thanksgiving.
gobble.